good morning. I'm here today with Dr. Pankaj Koparde. My name is Pratiksha Chalke, and I'm a GIS analyst working as consultant with Sustaina Greens LLP, and we are a green tech firm. I'm very excited to introduce you to Dr. Pankaj Koparde. He's been my mentor, my professor during my post-graduation diploma in AI and climate change. And I am very excited for this session because we'll be learning a lot about his experiences, his work, and as well as what he wants to talk to us about spatial thinking. So let's begin. Uh, so let me introduce you to his work. Dr. Pankaj Koparde is an evolutionary ecologist working as an assistant professor with the Department of Environmental Studies in MIT World Peace University, Pune. His core expertise is in subjects such as evolutionary ecology, urban ecology, biogeography, biodiversity informatics, and science communication. He primarily works on owls and dragonflies. He is an admin of two mega citizen science projects, Dragonfly South Asia and Owl India. He is a TEDx speaker and has delivered talks across popular platforms such as Towards an Ecological Landscape, Indian Society of Landscape Architects, and Science on Tap. He is a DST Young Scientist Awardee and SAEVUS Rising Star of Conservation, Prakriti and Earthwatch Fellow. He is an IUCN contributor and actively engaged in research benefiting on-ground conservation. His work is featured in several newspapers and magazines. In the latest study, his team discovered a new species of damselfly and named it after ecological Armageddon. He is a member of two government committees such as Panchgani Biodiversity Committee and Pashan Lake Conservation. He is a member of World Dragonfly Association USA, International Biogeography Society USA, and Society for Conservation Biology UK. He also works as an ecological consultant and subject matter expert with various organizations such as ERM, Rambul, Ranwa, and corporates. He is also published Marathi writer with major interest in literary essays. His lab work is known as Chaturullu Lab, denoting the offbeat research Dr. Kopade and his team is doing on dragonflies and owls. So, sir, after hearing such amazing like your career and your work, we would really like to know what has been your like how has been your journey till here, and can you just tell us about yourself?
And I'm really happy that who is my student, she is interviewing me. So it's a wonderful, opportunity to be here. Well, as Pratiksha already, illustrated, but I will talk about just a couple of things. I did a master's in biotechnology. Was in ecology and evolution. So I switched tracks. Did in
Okay.
me as well as tracks, and now I'm here. And now when I look wrong in switching tracks, especially when you're confident
Okay.
the bio itself.
Yes, definitely, sir. So, thank you, sir, for sharing about your journey. I'm sure all the young researchers, students, and many others who have joined us today work. And I would like to ask you, like, uh, when we hear about the word ecology, I always remember Charles Darwin, who's the father of evolution, and his work on natural selection. But evolutionary ecology is a quite a new word, and it has a very nice ring to it. But we would like to know from your side, like, what does it means? What inspired you to work in this field? And like, why do we need to be aware about it?
Um, yes, right. When I say I'm an
Right,
evolutionary
right.
ecologist, this evolutionary ecology is a young field in science which basically evolution
So,
is more contemporary of the pattern that so shaped today's their ecology. People are bringing the evolutionary idea in study the ecology patterns.
yeah, mm, right,
As one circle and ecology as another circle, and the intersection would be called as the
okay, right, definitely. Wow, you just introduced us to a whole new world, and thank you for explaining it to us so simply. And I think everyone has understood like what it means. Um, so like I have, you know, my work. So I have worked in the field of remote sensing and GIS, but I apply these fields in the field of biology, ecology, conservation, and everything biodiversity. So when it comes to our topic for today, like I would like to get into the part of what actually GIS and remote sensing is, and what do you mean when we talk about spatial analysis?
with applications such as Google Maps or any navigation
Right.
app.
Yes. Right.
Everyone almost knows about it, uses it. It's just that in conservation, biogeography, or even citizen science for that matter,
Right.
Yes, the remote sensing part of it is more about
Mm. Right.
how long and if there are shortest route possible, right? So we turn to many times we also turn to the satellite image
Right.
restricted with taking getting very high resolution climate data, so forth.
Mm.
We are now trying to say that we are working on spatial analysis.
Right.
Spatial analysis part comes studies where spatial a lot, in finding.
Definitely, sir. So I think that comes to our next question of the session. Like, what can you tell us about what kind of role does GIS and remote sensing plays when it comes to solving many questions and so many issues when it comes to conservation or biology or citizen science? Like, like you mentioned, you can share stories with us. Can you like
Yeah.
elaborate on those stories and what kind of conservation efforts you have been part of?
Two things, land and people,
Like,
and of course animal in picture. So we actually start, but many times the focus is shifted.
right, right,
We talk about land, geographical extent, area.
right,
So a group of people who come together data about some species or some pattern, and they start dissipating this data in public, uh, which would essentially become a like me, the researchers have been using this data to answer some questions. Okay.
right,
So again, all the data is GPS tagged. So there is essentially a spatial,
right.
point that they collect. For example, one of the projects that there are a lot of bird atlases happening around the world.
Yes.
However, there's such an exercise. So essentially, a bird atlas is nothing but a long-term monitoring of birds in a very focused area and in a particular using a particular protocol, right?
Okay.
Actually, the Pune city birds, and we
Okay.
are getting the data through our contributors are not the researchers, but
Right.
perhaps just take it over. want to contribute voluntarily. So we have so far. So we
Oh,
started this
oh,
Pune Bharatlas in 2020, and
okay.
now is 2023. Huge amount of data, chunk of data,
Wow.
50,
Wow.
times
Oh,
the grid have been.
right,
And there are a lot of, the good
right,
thing is that we were never actively much involved on ground, you know, that we have been doing since almost, in which we are using, there is a GPS location tagged with it, India. So in our latest analysis in 2022 were curated.
wow,
We were, so there is a lot of power, you know,
right,
and they are using.
right. Definitely. Yes. So thank you so much, sir, for like giving us like so much information. I'm sure people want to get more involved in citizen science projects, and so I would like to congratulate you, by the way, on the discovery of new species on damselfly, and by all the audience, he and his team has named it after ecological Armageddon. So I think hearing this, everyone is quite excited to know what is the significance behind the name. How did he come to discover it? Like, how did his team went on to discovery of such a new species? Like, it's something to celebrate about. And what else would you like to add more about it?
We had a lot of sleepless nights, tiring field work is, and it's not just like entire fauna of Indian Odonata
Right.
observed. Okay, so I will just narrate the story of how we discovered it. So
Yes.
we got and what are the on the dragonflies, as well as we were also doing decode biogeography as well as the flies. Our team came species which we could not identify easily, so we took good pictures and everything. We got the permission, storming, lot of arguments that whether it's a new species or not, because this one new species that we have discussed, this genus, they are very notorious, the cryptic speciation. So they most of the protostata look kind of damselflies, and they are very
Wow.
cryptic sort of. So it's very even difficult to find one protosticta when you go to the forest. Like to find,
Yes.
and in fact, we were something which we could not, identify or put in into the standard or the taxonomically valid, species. We thought that to further work on it. So we visited the place again and again to, monitor the population and okay, which were just 500 Western Ghats we have been surveying species population. Okay, so with that we were back thinking, trying to sort of correlate why this is happening. Right, so habitat destruction is happening, mammal, we would species which are more thinking about in the last many years, looked at the protected areas, various protected areas in Germany, and
Yeah.
decline. And one thing was really like a big thing coming up. Okay, so though we are talking
Right.
going to suffer through,
Right.
however, when insects are gone, diminish, and
Right.
would eventually, create, especially with so on and so forth. So there's going to be a,
Right.
so we know that in an energy pyramid,
Right.
consumer that is very typical.
Right. Right.
So when this second layer is diminishing, the whole pyramid is going to collapse, right? So that comes out. Okay,
Okay.
several years this is not happening. However, we see increasingly insect abundance declining. So
Right.
that's why it's also called as ecological Armageddon. Okay,
Oh,
so the morphological feature, because then this will be just
right.
okay. So we wanted to make a statement here. We want rare protosticta species, which we discussed Gedania. Okay, so
Okay.
we say this, the common name of the species is Armageddon written. So when people start, listening to this, then they understand, oh, so there is a backstory. Oh, so there are, and they easily get aware of the facts which are concept, which we are,
Right.
it was featured all across. It was even cartoonized,
Wow.
did. And I think
Right.
by some or not, you comes up, I'll be more than happy to contribute in a similar manner.
Right.
Bringing this up, this like really
This is, I think, becoming close to many of the people who have read about it, and like they are in, if anyone is interested, I think they can contact you or your team members, and I think the paper is also published, and
yeah.
everything information, all the information is out there on the internet. So if anyone is interested, they can definitely check it out. And those who are hearing for the first time, I'm sure they must be wondering, like, what kind of role did GIS and remote sensing might have played when it comes to discovery of such species and the analysis that is to be done further. So we would like to
Okay.
know
Yeah.
from, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So here I would like to highlight, since I'm also seeing the comments, there are some questions related to ecosystems, endangered
Yes,
species,
yes,
wildlife populations and all that. So first of all, I would like to, answer the first question about how it contributed in the new species discovery. So when you start any study, you have to look at the literature, whatever is available, which are the areas where people have surveyed and which are the sites where they have seen certain number of species, right? So that gives you a background of information of where you should go and you should be doing this review. So since our project spanned a lot of states, like we started from Gujarat till Kerala, so we had around 5 states which we spanned across. We had a lot of data to go through, and all this data we first using GIS we plotted it, okay, on the map. So we knew where exactly people have studied, which are the locations, and when someone studies a particular location, there is some value in it because they know that there is back reference available, and this also gives you the areas where nobody has surveyed, right? So I think that is a new addition that you are doing. So you do a review of whoever has surveyed, and then you add your values, add your primary data from where you have not surveyed, right?
right,
So that gives you a bigger chunk of data, and perhaps you will get something new out of this entire exercise that you do. So this particular pattern we have been using for a lot of our dragonfly work, even for the
right,
owlet work that we did, that I did during my PhD.
right,
So we were looking at GPS locations of all the surveys done by ZSI, by various researchers, by various NGOs, and finding out which are the areas where there is a gap. Okay,
oh,
if you now jump into this particular regional gap, then it is likely that you will find something new or you will come across something new.
right,
Okay, and there is a reason why people have not addressed to that gap, and that's primarily because it's remote. Perhaps they think that there are no species over there or you won't find something new out of there. And of course, third is the funding. So
right,
if you get funding for that area, you can address this question. So you will see in many of our papers we have got this gap filling thing done. Okay, so this was the answer to your first question. The
right,
second question is again, there is a lot of sophisticated tools now available which combine remote sensing and GIS, and a species may occur. Okay, so this
okay,
is called as species distribution modeling. And there has been a lot of approaches. The most popular one is called as the Maxent approach, and there are approaches in which a set of algorithms are combined, like or there are multiple approaches which are combined into a single one. That's called as ensemble approach, right? So let me give you
Oh,
found is known only from, let us say, only one district, and
right,
find it anywhere else. So when a bird is found in a particular location, specific about that location, right?
right.
So it could be habitat, it could be climatic, factors, play base. It could be the kind of protection that particular area has. It could be the people's involved. So using the remote sensing and GIS, we can download, we can get the access to the layers of vegetation, of climatic data. We could check data regarding where the species is found and how far particular area is from the human habitation, from the water source. So there are n number of ways you can collect the data regarding the species habitat association. Okay. Now once this data is there, and let us say you have a set of points from where the species is located. Let us say there are 20, 30 points. You create a model, a mathematical, and you predict which all the new areas in the state, in the Maharashtra state, let's say. Okay. Why I'm choosing only extrapolate, the more error you might end up getting. So you start with a smaller area, you predict in a smaller area, and this particular model will tell you that look, there is a possibility that in a particular new location, the species might be existing, right?
Oh,
So you will have to go to that location on ground and search for the species if it's there or not. Now the models are not 100% accurate.
sorry.
Okay. And even the species association that we are making, they're also not 100% accurate. So it's not that you create a model and the model is going to predict 100%. That is generally not the case. But there would be a power of perhaps 20 to 30% of accuracy that you might get with such models. Okay. And if you could do the groundwork, and if you find the species in a new location, there is nothing like that, because you are working on a rare species which is in need of
Hmm,
conservation, which is
hmm,
perhaps endangered as well. And even one single new location is a big thing. It's almost
hmm.
similar to equivalent to a species discovery. Okay. So this is how you can combine the power of remote sensing GIS in predictive modeling, and this would help in discovering new populations. And once you discover a new population, you can then eventually go for further studies, ecological studies on those
Right.
population. You can look at population genetics and so on and so forth. And new protected areas can be established, protection levels can be established. So it's really a wonderful process by which remote sensing GIS can be used, and it has given results. So I'm not just telling you in the, like, in the cloud, in the air.
Hmm.
I use the same method in my PhD, and we definitely got some good results with regard to forest owlet. So we discovered a lot of new locations where the forest owlet was, and earlier it was not known. Yeah,
Okay.
so it really helps.
Okay. Wow. I think I'm even though I work in this field, I am hearing so much of new things and ideas are like coming up to me. We have many questions from the audience today. So, would you like to answer a few of them so that, even whatever queries they have, they are like sorted out?
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah,
I'll
yeah.
just,
So yeah, you can tell me any specific question you want me to answer,
yes.
because I think more or less we have talked about like bits and pieces, about this.
Yes, yes. So, uh, from yeah, I'll just read them out. I'm wondering which GIS software gives accurate predictions about bird diversity and their breeding patterns.
Okay. So we don't use a GIS software for these calculations, but we use the the routine statistical softwares like RStudio or Past or even sometimes Excel when the data is very small. So we do use that. However, if you want to have a quick look into the migratory behavior, breeding pattern, seasonality of birds, ebird .com is a website where you should definitely visit, and you pick up any species and it will have citizen science data which will plot the entire activity pattern of that bird across the year. So this is those secondary data. You can download this data and you can modify it or use it as per your requirement. So it's downloadable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next question would be, are there any notable case studies or project where GI significantly contributed to preserving endangered species or protecting ecosystem? I think Sir
Yeah.
has already answered that.
Already mentioned.
So
Yeah.
I hope the question query has been solved from the person's side. I'll move on to the next question. How have advancements in technologies such as GIS influenced biogeographical research?
Okay, so this is, I think, a pretty broad question, but something that I missed talking about was, today's craze with the drones, that we have.
Right, right,
So drones could be considered as a mini satellite, okay, and they would be giving you very high resolution images of the land. So if
right,
you're working on a smaller study area, if you're working on a limited amount of land, the drones imagery can be really useful. Though I have not really worked on it, but I have read and I have heard about it. So the drones can give you very high resolution data, which eventually you can use for your any of the project. It might even be environmental impact assessment for which you might be using this. Okay. However,
okay,
for a broader extent, we generally go for satellites. And within satellites, there are categories. So you may want to go for a 30-meter resolution or 90-meter resolution or so on and so forth, depending upon your question. And there are different types of satellite images which are of different types of resolution. So you can use those. So especially this question is about advancement in technology. So
yes,
one easy way to understand this advancement of technology is the resolution that you see in today's satellites. Okay. So if you look at the older satellite imagery, the real resolution was very coarse. However,
yeah,
now we have very high resolution images available,
right,
something called as hyperspectral imagery, and that's again reflecting the advancement in technology. So now even at 10 meter by 10 meter you can find out what's happening on ground
right,
using a satellite image. So that's
right.
like really powerful technology.
Definitely. Wow, thank you, sir, for answering that questions. I will
Yeah.
move on to the next one. Uh, it's from Towards the Green. The name is like quite nice. What ways can spatial analysis contribute to more effective conservation strategies?
Okay. So one thing I think all the special analysts would be telling you is that things which are closer in space would be more associated or more correlated. So spatial analysis always is going to be the fundamental analysis that you do in any of the ecological or evolutionary analysis that you do, because ecology is defined primarily in two axes. One is the spatial axis, the other is the temporal axis. So things would change over a geographical area or they would change over a time. And if you combine both these things, then there is more dynamic system that you see, right? So just to make it simple, just to like dissect it down, if you are thinking about conservation strategies that you apply in a particular area, they may not be the same strategies which could be applied in a different area,
Right,
because a lot of things change as you move in the space. So for example, what the central Indian forests are hosting and the kind of conservation they need versus the Western Ghat forest, it is different, right? So because the micro level processes are different, the bioclimate is different, and that's primarily again because they're separate in space. Okay, the strategies that you use in temperate region So conservation is a philosophy. Conservation science, comes out to be a Western philosophy. However, we have been practicing it unknowingly in India for many years. So the strategies they are applying, in the tropical regions or the temperate regions may not be the same which can be applied in tropical. Okay. So again, this is because of a spatial change, right? And if you put in time dimension in this, things further change.
Right.
So definitely, whichever kind of analysis you do in ecology, it would inform you about how effective conservation can be initiated. Okay, so definitely, whatever you do, any ecological study do, mapping, remote sensing, remote sense data is going to be very essential data that you can use for conservation.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for answering that question. Do we still have time? I think,
Yeah,
yeah, we'll have a last question. And
yeah,
how
sure.
does GIS aid in monitoring changes in vegetation cover or wildlife population over time?
Okay, can you repeat that? I
Yeah,
missed the last part.
yeah. How does GIS aid in monitoring changes in vegetation cover or wildlife
Mhm.
populations over time?
Okay, yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, that there is an advancement of technology, sophisticated tools available.
Right,
So even the vegetation monitoring is now, becoming more and more advanced.
right,
Perhaps in the beginning, when we started, perhaps few years back, the GIS is again like 1990s onward, it has become very popular. So in the beginning of that era, GIS or remote sensing era, you had very coarse resolution imageries, and now you have very high resolution imageries. Not just that, the imageries are now getting with recalculation, and you are getting vegetation indices, which were earlier not available. So even just by looking at the image, you can say which are the areas where you have certain type of forest and where you have certain type of grassland. So that kind of a accuracy we are getting with a newer and newer technology, and it is evolving over time. And the
right,
latest thing that we see is now there is a estimate of carbon, which
right,
I think would eventually grow up because of all the industries demand that they should generate some carbon credits. In fact, I would like to just mention here a little bit about even Pratiksha's work that she did for her project, her master's
uh,
dissertation, in which she was looking at the Pune city, and she was looking at in the last 10 years of time, so 2013 to 2022, if there is a change in the overall LULC, the land use land change. Okay, and she was also looking at if the temperature has changed, if the precipitation has changed, because we have been getting very irregular kind of monsoons from the last many years. And she also looked at very specifically the carbon sequestration or carbon storage, of the city. So when she showed me that we could do this, I was really impressed that just by using the satellite image, now you can do so many calculations which is not otherwise possible for a single individual to go on ground and do it.
right,
Because the traditional way of doing the carbon sequestration analysis is by taking plots, taking the GBH height of the trees, getting the biomass, converting it into carbon. I know it is more accurate, but at a larger extent, it becomes really tedious. And perhaps
right,
you will not have enough time to then do this analysis and inform the policymakers or
right,
how, because the cities are very changing very fast. So you
right,
have very limited amount of time. At the same time, you want to do the analysis and inform the policymakers that these areas should be protected, these other areas could be permitted development. You know, so GIS has given you that head start. Remote sensing GIS has given you that head start, and though we use it, we should not be blindly following it. Okay, so
right,
that is my take home message. So it will give you, as I mentioned, that it is a model, right? It's going to give you something,
right,
but the groundwork, ground truthing, ground reality has to be understood, and
right,
accordingly you develop your answers to the question that you have. So that is the
right.
take home message.
Yes. So yeah, like thank you so much, sir, for describing our study. Um, it was quite exciting for me to work with you because my expertise in GIS and remote sensing, but your expertise in both GIS and field study was very important for me to understand how the dynamics of ecosystem services work. I think the last question from my side would be, we talked about citizen science.
Yeah.
So, are there any tools that any locals need to learn, or they can learn to get into citizen science program, or what are other ways they can contribute to it without learning any
Mhm.
GIS tools?
Okay. So the citizen science projects are whichever are happening in India are species specific projects. So people are either working on they are working on birds or insects or plants. So there are very prominent groups which are working on these. So if you are interested in any of these taxa, you can get in touch with your local level project if anything is happening. So since you have asked me this question, there is a citizen science conference that happens every year, and this year is just around the corner. 29th November is the last registration date, so you can
Oh,
even join that
okay.
to get to
Yeah.
know what are the projects happening across. Once you get in with the regional team, you will know how to go about it. So they will share the protocol. There are certain apps that you have to use, like iNaturalist or eBird, for that matter. And the
Okay.
local chapters may also have some different apps that they use. Okay.
Mhm.
If you have collected data already, you can simply start posting it on the eBird. So if you go
Right.
to eBird website, it's the like the largest bird database now. If you have worked on birds, you can simply go to the website, and
Right.
learn it how to upload your data. So even if it's old data, you can upload it and it will be appearing on the dashboard. So you can
Right.
eventually see that this data has been used, for various research. So, I mean, citizen science is just a new term, but people have been doing this, right? So,
Right.
citizen science brings all the information in a single platform. That is the only advantage that we have. And for the researchers, you can download data directly from eBird if you are specifically interested in birds. But if you are interested in other taxa apart from bird, or of course birds as well, then GBIF is the central repository where you'll get everything. Okay, so Global Biodiversity Information Foundation, I guess GBIF
Yes.
is where, yeah. So there you will get everything. So you just put the species name, entire data would come, and this would not be just the live specimens or the live records, human observation. You may also get museum data, museum specimens. So it's
Wow.
like a big
Okay.
comprehensive data set now. So
Right.
if you want to do some analysis with that, you can use definitely GBI.
Yes.
Yeah. So
So, yeah, I would like to add one thing.
yeah,
You mentioned and you talked about eBird website, right? So I
yeah.
would like to add that there are many trend analysis
Mhm.
data set which are actually GIS data set like rasters and the satellite image, but they have analyzed some trends
Yeah.
and breeding season and everything. So you
Correct.
can go on their website and people can in fact check out without any cost. And if they have GIS software, they can also analyze those data sets for themselves. So
Yeah.
yeah, like that is one advantage. And thank you, sir, for introducing us to so many topics. Conservation, GIS, eBird, GBIF, so many things. So I think many of our audience have a lot of information with them now, and they can explore for themselves. And I'm so glad that you joined us for this session today and answered our questions and queries and just like we are very excited to discover all these topics for ourselves and explore more, and if anyone has any doubts they can reach out to us and they can find us on LinkedIn and other social media. Sir also has his own lab, Chaturundu, and he also does a lot of research to that lab. So you can definitely contact him for any research ideas you have if he is open
Yeah.
to it. I think he is quite
Yeah.
open to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you so much, sir. Okay, there's one last question,
Yeah,
which just popped up now, so we can just address that. How do you
yeah, sure.
how do you precisely locate plants or birds, especially in those areas where Google Maps or other similar technology doesn't work and there is the tagging is not possible? So I think they
Okay.
are talking about many dense areas where the network issue
Yeah.
causes a lot of
Yes.
gap.
So yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, the GIS technology will help you up to a limit, right? But
Right,
beyond that, there are some other technology like if your smartphones networks are not working, we typically use handheld GPS units, which are I think
yes,
now getting
very
discarded because of
yes,
smartphone has everything.
yeah,
So, but otherwise, traditionally people used to use the GPS units, and in that also you have different categories which would have a better reception of the signal, satellite signal, and they can give you the location. Okay. However, as correctly mentioned by I think Mr. Manvendra Singh here, that many times it happens that you have the location, you go there, and the signal is lost, and you don't see anything, right?
right,
So in such cases, it is very important to have an expert with you. Whatever you are
right,
trying to find out, you should get an expert with you, or you need to rely more on your senses, to
right,
locate the bird or any animal that you're looking at. So it could be your acoustic signals, visual signals, the movement the animal does, or the habitat information that you have. So this we experienced quite a lot when we were working on forest owlet. We were predicting in new areas using the spatial distribution modeling, and we were going to those areas and trying to figure out if the owlet is there or not. Okay. Now finding an owl which is brown colored in the brown forest is really difficult. Okay.
definitely,
And
yes,
secondly, and fortunately for us, it was a diurnal bird. So it was not, it was active at the daytime. So that was like really fortunate thing for us because then at least you have some visibility. However, that bird is so camouflagic that you can't spot it just like that. However, if you play a call, it would respond to it. Okay.
right,
And of course, call playback itself is a very, debatable topic here.
yeah,
However, if you play a call, it would respond to you, and then still you will not be able to easily spot it. So there you have to
right,
rely more on your expertise about the habitat, about the various tools that you may have used or your experience in the field. That is
right,
generally something that we generally go for. But yeah, I mean, there are various ways by which you can find out. And again, not everything is 100% accurate. So you will need to
definitely,
have a lot of failures
yes,
to get some success. So that is the crux of
yes,
it.
yes. Okay, thank you so
Yeah.
much, sir, for answering that last question. And I hope the question query, like they have got their answer. I'm I am hoping that you get to discover more new species so that we can have another talk. And all the very best to you for your work. And obviously, we will keep working together on different projects.
Yes.
Have a good day, sir. And thank you so much for this session. And yeah, I thank you
Thanks.
all the
Thanks a
audience
lot.
for joining us today and for asking your questions. Have a good day. Bye.
Okay, bye. Thanks a lot.
Bye. Thank you, sir.